President Sisi announces the launch of the 5th AU Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Awareness Week. Israeli Prime Minister affirms that Hamas will be disarmed in all areas under its control. And Iran reaffirms that uranium enrichment is a sovereign right and non-negotiable. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has announced the launch of the 5th African Union Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Awareness Week, to be held from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2025 under the theme Rebuilding Lives After Conflict Through Reparative Justice. He stressed Africa's interconnected security and development challenges, from internal conflict and terrorism to climate change and global polarization, while highlighting the continent's vast resources and human capital. President Sisi called for comprehensive African approaches rooted in national ownership, institution building, youth and women's participation, and justice for conflict victims. He praised the AU Center in Cairo and reaffirmed his commitment to coordinating with the African leaders and partners to achieve Agenda 2063. Egypt has welcomed the signing of the Doha Framework Peace Agreement on the 15th of November between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the M23 movement, calling it a significant step towards stability in eastern Congo, national reconciliation, and the preservation of the country's unity and territorial integrity. In a Foreign Ministry statement, Egypt praises the constructive diplomatic efforts of regional and international partners, noting that the June 2025 Washington peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the July 2025 Doha Declaration of Principles created essential momentum for this outcome. Egypt reaffirms its support for efforts to consolidate peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Great Lakes region, expressing readiness to cooperate with all partners. The Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has delivered the keynote address at the opening session of the second AI Data Centers and Cloud Conference, and he highlighted AI's role in sustainable development, public service enhancement, and the sectoral innovation in health, education, agriculture, and governance, emphasizing Egypt's strategic initiatives, including the National AI Council and multi-phase national AI strategy. Abdelati underscored Egypt's active role in international AI governance, the Digital Global Charter, and the leadership in Arab and African AI strategies, aiming to position Egypt as a regional technology innovation hub while fostering transparency, equity, and human-centered digital development. The Arab League has stressed the importance of promoting dialogue, mutual understanding, and awareness of tolerance as a moral and societal value. And marking the UN International Day for Tolerance, it reaffirmed that tolerance is not a slogan, but respect for difference and recognition of diversity as a civilizational asset that supports peace and prosperity. The Arab League warned against growing global hate speech and extremism, calling for initiatives that uphold cultural, religious, and linguistic diversity, equal rights, and educational programs that instill tolerance. It highlighted its work on an Arab Declaration for Tolerance and Peace, urging societies to embed coexistence, justice, and human dignity as foundations for a safer and more humane future. And we now move on to the latest developments in Gaza.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. It was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
Egypt has dispatched its 73rd aid convoy under the Zad al-Izza Provision of Honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative from Rafah to Gaza via the Karam Abu Salem border crossing. And the convoy delivers urgent winter and food supplies to Gaza, carrying approximately 9,300 tons of aid, including 5,500 tons of food, baskets and flour, and 2,400 tons of medical and relief supplies, and 1,400 tons of fuel. And the convoy also responded to recent heavy rains by providing over 106,000 blankets, 1,350 mattresses and 40,000 winter garments and 4,450 tents. And since its July 27th launch, the initiative has coordinated the delivery of more than 500,000 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza, facilitated by 35,000 volunteers and continuous operations at the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has emphasized the urgent need for an international stabilization force in Gaza to monitor the ceasefire, facilitate humanitarian aid, and pave the way for reconstruction, ultimately supporting the establishment of a Palestinian state along the June 4th, 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Speaking in Ankara, he highlighted the U.S. engagement as crucial in overcoming past negotiation obstacles and stressed implementing all phases of the Sharm el-Sheikh peace plan, including a temporary Palestinian committee for Gaza. Abdelati also addressed Egypt's mediation in Palestinian reconciliation, Sudan's humanitarian crisis in El Fasher, Libya's institutional unification, and deepening the Egyptian-Turkish bilateral cooperation for regional stability.
On hold, because this is very important. This is our first priority for Egypt, for Turkey, for the countries in the region.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has affirmed that Hamas will be disarmed in all areas under its control, whether by peaceful or forceful means. He reiterated that Israel's stance against establishing a Palestinian state remains unchanged. Netanyahu also stated that his government will take decisive action against settlers who commit acts of violence in the West Bank, emphasizing the administration's commitment to security and law enforcement across all contested territories. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has reiterated Israel's absolute rejection of a Palestinian state as the UN Security Council prepares to vote on a US-backed resolution endorsing a path to Palestinian statehood. And Katz declared that Israel's stance is firm, but that there will be no Palestinian state, adding that Gaza will be fully demilitarized and Hamas dismantled. He said that the Israeli occupation army will remain positioned at Jabal el-Sheikh and within the security zone. His remarks come one day before the Security Council votes on a U.S. proposal supporting U.S. President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan, which includes an international stabilization force. And for more analysis, we now move to Mark Summers in our newsroom. Mark.
Thank you very much, Selma. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. We are joined from Cairo now by the specialist in Palestinian-Israeli affairs, Ibrahim Al-Drawi. Thank you very much for being there with us. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said and claimed that Hamas will be disarmed peacefully or forcefully. What might forceful disarmament look like on the ground?
Of course, I want to confirm that Israel always has justifications to not get to the a second phase of the ceasefire agreement. From the very first second of the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, the Israeli side hasn't allowed aid delivery in enough manner, and they didn't withdraw or disarm them according to the agreement, and then they are stalling again so that we don't get into phase two. We're talking about disarmament here, and disarmament actually is in the second phase, not the first one, and it was not said that it will be pre-phase 2, it will be during phase 2, and I think that Cairo and the mediators could get to a point where if Israel wants some international Palestinian forces, and there are some precautions here, and we don't know what kinds of government reformation Israel wants. And so here I think that it was wise for the soldiers that were trained by Cairo and to have this committee to govern Gaza that was formed lately under the patronage of Egypt, and so that we can get into phase 2. Hamas has said that they will hand over their arms either to the government or to the new forces that will be governing the Gaza Strip. And today we're talking about Witkoff and Khalil al-Hay's meeting. And here Israel actually is bothered by these meetings and by this relationship between Washington and Hamas. And I think that things are escalating internally in Israel. Israel is very bothered by the relationships that are forming or the point of views that the mediators are offering after talking and after negotiations with Hamas. Cairo is in almost a daily contact with Hamas, Israel, and the USA, and here they agree internationally, and Cairo has actually asked to have a meeting with the Security Council and to have this government formed by them so that there are no clashes between the Palestinians and Israel, and so that the international forces that will govern the Gaza Strip will be assigned by the Security Council and will have a crucial role to stop the conflict between Israel and other resistance factions and between Israel. And so here Israel actually did this because now there are some things that they need from Washington, and they want to change what Washington has offered the Security Council, and especially here we're talking that they want these forces to make sure that Hamas will be disarmed, and this wasn't mentioned in what Washington has offered. Hamas will hand over their arms to the mediators, the international forces, or the Palestinian partners. And now there was here something that happened that shows that Israel is a country that loves blood, and especially those who are detained in tunnels underground with Israel's control on them. And so here they don't just want disarmament. Actually, Hamas was very lenient here, and they agreed to hand over their arms and to leave the land that they have control over. But Israel here refuses this. And so yes, Israel wants to kill them. They don't just want a disarmament, and we saw them calling to kill those people, to close the tunnels, and to eradicate them completely. And so yes, Israel wants to eradicate Hamas completely. In 2 years they have killed around 100 or 150,000, but they couldn't end Hamas once and for all, as Netanyahu was saying.
Which is true, of course, but I just want to interrupt there just a moment, sir, if I can, because Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, has reiterated once again that Israel has a complete rejection of a Palestinian state. How does that stance impact the prospects for any future peace negotiations?
Let me say that Netanyahu's government are refusing any rights for the Palestinians or any coordination with Palestine since Netanyahu took or became in charge. And I think that advancing won't be under Netanyahu's government. But actually, if the USA wants, and yes, they could pressure Netanyahu to sign any agreements that have to do with a two-state solution, because the US is the number one supporter of Israel in the Middle East, and so on. So if it weren't for the USA, Israel wouldn't have been in the region for 10 days. We're talking about a 12-day war on Tehran, and then the USA, even though they were providing them with arms and so on, they couldn't reach what they wanted in the 12-day war. And then the second thing is the 7th of October, they had logistic support, they had the USA's full support, but then around 1,500 people only could invade Israel, and then they have unlimited support from the USA financially, and they support them with arms too. But here, and actually, Israel is facing just factions, armed groups, not just not like a full-on government. And so Israel is actually fragile if it weren't for the USA. And so if Trump threatens that he could stop his support in providing them with arms, I think that this will be one way to have Netanyahu accept a two-state solution. And actually their internal government are listening to what the USA is saying, and especially because some officials in the USA are threatening Israel, and they are telling them that basically they are doing more harm than good to the USA. Here we have around 20 officials in the Congress that have signed some affidavit that says that Israel had war crimes in Gaza. And I think that this all could lead to a two-state solution, and we will have an actual Palestinian state. But now we have an internal conflict in Palestine, unfortunately, so that we can have we can be on the same page with Israel. But we need the Palestinians themselves and the Palestinian government to be on the same page before becoming on the same page with Israel. And so, yes, Palestine today needs some kind of unity.
Yes, thank you very much indeed for making those valuable points. Specialist in Palestinian-Israeli affairs, Ibrahim Al-Drawi. Thank you very much for joining us from Cairo. And it's back to you in the studio now, Sama.
Thank you, Mark. Israeli media has reported that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is now viewed as the main obstacle to advancing the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire outlined in President Trump's proposal. And according to the analysis, the Arab partners of the U.S. believe Netanyahu is preventing any movement towards the plan, particularly steps that could lead to a Palestinian state. Israeli media says senior Israeli political officials insist on keeping the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing closed, despite the agreement's requirement that it reopens in the first phase. Hamas has announced that it has received from Israel a list of 1,468 Palestinian detainees from Gaza, emphasizing that Israel bears full responsibility for the lives of all detainees. And the movement added that Israel continues to forcibly consume additional detainees whose identities remain undisclosed, and Hamas called on the mediators to exert pressure on Israel to reveal the full number of the detainees and ensure transparency regarding their conditions, stressing the urgent need for accountability and protection of all the Palestinian detainees held in Israeli custody. Jordan and Pakistan have reaffirmed their rejection of any plans to displace Palestinians and reiterated the support for an independent Palestinian state based on a two-state solution. And during a meeting in Islamabad, King Abdullah II of Jordan emphasized the full adherence to the Gaza ceasefire, adequate humanitarian aid, and the cessation of unilateral measures in the West Bank, including settlement expansion and threats to holy sites. Both leaders stressed enhancing the Jordanian-Pakistani cooperation across trade, investment, tourism, education, technology, and defense. Agreements were signed on the media collaboration, cultural exchange, and establishing an Urdu studies chair at the University of Jordan, highlighting 78 years of strong bilateral ties and joint efforts for Middle East peace and stability. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 69,400 and over 170,700 were wounded. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that hospitals in the Gaza Strip have received 17 dead and 3 others injured in the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization stated that 900 patients in Gaza have lost their lives due to delays in medical evacuation. The World Health Organization has stated nearly 4,000 children in Gaza are still waiting to be evacuated for urgent medical treatment 1 month after the ceasefire. The WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said his agency is working inside Gaza to restore shattered health services while coordinating patient transfers out of the Strip. In a post on X, Tedros thanked the 30 countries that have already received patients and urged others to step forward, noting that over 16,500 people in total need life-saving treatment outside Gaza. He also called for all evacuation routes to be fully opened, especially those leading to the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Palestinians aided by local groups and UN agencies have launched a Gaza City campaign to clear rubble and rebuild the Gaza Strip devastated by the 2 years of war. And head of the Palestinian non-governmental organizations network, Amjad El-Shawa, called this move a sign of hope to restore Gaza. That came as volunteers, UN officials, and residents participated using machinery and trucks to remove the debris. Protesters in Tel Aviv have demanded that the Israeli government establish an independent state inquiry into the October 7th incidents, accusing the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of resisting accountability. Demonstrators rejected Netanyahu's intention to select committee members, arguing it would compromise fairness, and they also called for the return of the remains of detainees. Moving on to Lebanon, where the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon has reported that its forces had to take cover during an Israeli tank withdrawal, but were able to safely leave the area without injuries. The mission condemned the shooting at its personnel as a serious violation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. The UNIFIL called on the Israeli military to immediately halt any attacks against its forces, emphasizing the need to respect the mandate and ensure the safety of peacekeepers operating in southern Lebanon. In Syria, the Syrian news agency has reported that the Israeli occupation forces briefly advanced into the Syrian village of Saida in southern Qanaitara in southern Syria before withdrawing, and this incursion follows a recent Israeli penetration near the outskirts of a village in the Yarmouk Basin area west of Daraa province, highlighting the ongoing cross-border tensions and intermittent military operations in southern Syria. The Suwaida Events Investigation Committee has affirmed that its inquiries are ongoing in line with United Nations standards. During a press conference in Damascus, the committee stressed its independence, rejecting instructions for any external body and committing to impartial operations. It emphasized its determination to uphold accountability and ensure no one escapes justice, reiterating that all investigations' actions are conducted with complete neutrality and integrity. Moving on, the Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has stressed the need to intensify diplomatic efforts to resolve the Iranian nuclear file and reach a comprehensive agreement that considers all parties' interests and enhances regional security. He held phone calls with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi to follow up on developments as part of Egypt's ongoing push to de-escalate tensions. The discussions also addressed preparations for the upcoming IAEA Board of Governors meeting, with Abdelati underscoring the importance of multilateral dialogue to reinforce non-proliferation and global stability. Grossi praised the support of Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for peaceful nuclear applications, highlighting the Daba nuclear plant as a model of cooperation with the IAEA. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has reaffirmed that uranium enrichment is a sovereign right and non-negotiable, stressing that Tehran upheld the nuclear agreement as long as other parties did. And speaking at the International Law Under Attack conference in Tehran, he blamed the United States for abandoning the deal and denounced Washington's expansionist policies. Araghchi said the recent military strike on Iran was a direct blow to diplomacy, with the first missile targeting the negotiating table, yet Iran has never quit dialogue. He warned that the international law faces grave threats from states claiming to defend it, insisting that only diplomacy and a fair, inclusive global order can resolve disputes. The Iranian government spokesperson has confirmed that Tehran is cooperating with the International Atomic Energy Agency under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty following national interests and domestic laws. She noted Iran received messages from intermediaries without disclosing details, and that comes as Iran seeks to strengthen ties with Russia, China, and Gulf countries, emphasizing the BRICS cooperation and regional understanding. The Iranian government spokesperson warned that Israel against repeated attacks, stating Tehran would respond more forcefully if provoked, and affirmed that bolstering missile capabilities is natural to defend national sovereignty and citizens' lives. And the Iranian army has affirmed that it has continuously strengthened its defensive capabilities without delay. And that came as the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that Iran has halted uranium enrichment at all sites and criticized the U.S. approach as unwilling to engage in fair, balanced negotiations. Araghchi emphasized Iran remains open to diplomacy, rejecting any talks aimed at dictation. Also, a senior foreign ministry official warned that an IAEA resolution against Iran could lead to a review of its non-proliferation cooperation. That came as the Atomic Energy Organization head accused the West of repeating previous policies at the upcoming AEA meetings. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap up, and here's a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. President el-Sisi announces the launch of the 5th AU Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Awareness Week. Israeli Prime Minister affirms that Hamas will be disarmed in all areas under its control. And Iran reaffirms that uranium enrichment is a sovereign right and non-negotiable. For more stories and live updates, do follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG. And from all of us here, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more news on Q News.